Okay, so this is my response for the last chapter and the last little bit of Black is the Body. So, diet response to describe what's happening. Basically, it's to kind of wrap up the book, and the last kind of theme that she focuses on is about what is a home and finding a home. So, throughout the chapter, she goes on talking to like different people and asking them like what they think a home is and what is a home, how do you describe it, where do you find one, kind of a thing. And I think it just kind of overall kind of works towards this idea that's presented a lot in the book, that she feels kind of out of place everywhere, and that even in back in Nashville, she describes it like, like when she's with her family, she feels safe, she feels at home when she's in that part of Nashville. But when she goes like more south, that she's scared and she's not with people who look like her or who think the same way that she does, and she feels unsafe. And that in Vermont, she feels safe, but not fully. She doesn't really have exact feeling of this is where my home is. Like, okay, I have a house, I have a family here, I have a job that I love and all this, but like she doesn't feel like that connection, and she doesn't understand why she hasn't really felt that connection anywhere. And so she's still kind of struggling to figure out where is my home. And so it goes on, and she talks to different people in the chapter, and then in the end she kind of gives in and kind of like, okay, well, like this place may not be my home, but it's a place to be for now, and is kind of content in her ending, which I think is kind of beautiful, because the whole story has kind of been a never-ending journey of struggle and feeling out of place. And though she still kind of feels out of place, like she's accepted it, but not in like a negative way. Like she's like, I may be out of place like overall, but I have a place to be where I'm like not out of place, if that makes sense. So interpretation, I liked it. It was good. Good writing, easy to read, easy to follow and understand what she was saying. Evaluation, I think she did a good job getting her point across. I think it was really good. One thing that I kind of took away that I think was pretty interesting is that, when we grow up learning about like the Civil War and how it was like the North versus the South, and that the North were really against slavery, and that's where all the abolitionists were, and that, all the slaves were trying to escape the South and go north so they could be free. But then she talks about like, she's like, yeah, like the rate of like Black people getting shot by cops is a lot lower, but it's because there's not as many Black people there. And that even like the people that she runs into like have never seen a Black person before, like don't know how to act around a Black person, or like are even racist towards Black people. And it kind of like opens your eyes, or it's like, where we had this idea that North was this place of freedom and safety, but in reality, like everywhere's kind of not safe. And the only place that she was kind of really safe was in her family back in Nashville, where she was really only around other Black people. And then in the epilogue, it kind of talks about her mom more. And I don't know, I wish she would have talked about her mom a lot more throughout her essays, just because I think there's a lot more things that, I don't know, I would like to know her struggle with like the diagnosis of her mom's like breast cancer, because like my mom had breast cancer, so it's something that like I could really relate to, and it would feel like it'd be really interesting to learn more about it. But she briefly mentions it here and there, but never goes in specific. But I also understand how traumatizing it is to live through a loved one with breast cancer, and dying of breast cancer too with my aunt. But she talks about that, and how her mom left like writings for her in her closet, and she was like reading it, like trying to search for like this happy ending, and how her grandmother would say things like, racism is just like ignorance, and like you shouldn't hate these people, you should pity them. And like part of me like agrees, because I believe everyone deserves to be educated, and I don't think racism is something that again flows through your blood. like her grandmother mentions that it's something that's taught. And in like the chapter before, it was talking about like the professor, he's like, racism is something that's taught and it's something that we can unteach. And I just think that was a really nice message to leave on, because I think there's just so much hatred sometimes from both sides, which of course is understandable on the one side, because it is so many years and years and years of torment and awfulness that it's understandable for all the pent-up frustration. But it kind of like goes to show that violence is not the answer for anything. But yeah, so I also liked that she was kind of discovering this out about her mom. She's like, I didn't even know that like my mom wrote these essays. And I just like kind of throughout the book, when she would mention her other relatives, and you can kind of be like, oh, well, that's where Emily gets like her attitude from. That's where she gets her like durability and her hardness and her spunkiness and her attitude. And then it's like, well, she also gets her writing talent from her mom, who got it from her grandma, who probably got it from like back and back and back other ancestors. And I just think it's like kind of cute and sweet to kind of wrap up the book with kind of like the message of familial ties. And it's like the only thing that, it's not like the only thing she got from her ancestors was her blackness. She got a lot of other things, a lot of beautiful things. Not to say that blackness isn't beautiful, it is, but that she's more than that, and that being black is more than just the color of your skin. But yeah, it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate being exposed to this kind of information, and really opened my eyes.